Hey, I'm Greg Jones, and welcome to my part 2 of teaching on the number system. I'm teaching on exceptions to the number system today. If you've been following my channel, I did a part 1 on the number system that teaches on what the number system is and what the patterns are for that system. The number system meaning that it's a way that we can number chord progressions so that we can recognize patterns, so that we can recognize keys, so that we can figure out what scales to play over chords. I later did part 2 video, but in part 2 I demonstrated this content with a piano keyboard. I did that because the piano keyboard gives us a great visualization of the inside and outside notes for the key, at least if you're doing the examples like I did in the key of C major. It shows you the sharps and the flats. So it helps visualize. So I would encourage you to watch that even if you're not a keyboard player. But I thought, since my channel is primarily geared for guitarists, I should really cover that same content again on guitar. So I'm going to do that today. I'm also going to cover a few additional things I didn't think of in that other part 2 video. So I'm glad you're here. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps me out. Without further ado, let's begin. Okay, so for chord number 2, it's supposed to be a minor chord. What happens when we encounter a 2 major instead? So in the key of C major, what happens when we see a D major chord instead of a D Lydian? Well, what we're going to play in the key of C is we're going to play C Lydian instead. Here's what it's going to sound like. Check it out. So for that chord progression, I just looped C major and D major. I could have added a 4 chord, an F major, a 5 chord in there. And if I would have added those, it would have given us a greater emphasis of the key of C. And what I would be more inclined to do is switch back to C major, especially over that F chord, because that F natural in the C Lydian scale is going to conflict. The F sharp in the C Lydian mode is going to conflict with the F major chord, the 4 chord in the key of C. So I would be most inclined in such a context, basically anytime you're playing in the key of C and that 2 major just pops up briefly, you go to Lydian, but then you come back to the major scale. Okay, so normally the 7 chord is diminished. I taught it in part 1 as the 5/7. But what happens when instead of seeing a 5/7 or diminished for 7, we see a 7 minor chord? Now I rarely see these, but I thought I would include this in the video. We're also going to be living in Lydian land for that. So the 7 minor is a flag to us also, like the 2 major, that Lydian is the mode we want to go to. I'm also going to use the C major pentatonic. I'm going to try to weave that in here as a way to bypass the modes. You can use pentatonics that way, where you would replace a major mode with a major pentatonic or the minor mode with a minor pentatonic to kind of cheat the mode. So I'm going to do both. I'm going to put C Lydian in here and C major pentatonic. Let's see what it sounds like. Okay, so what do we do when the 3 minor shows up as a 3 major in a major chord progression? Well, the mode I'm going to suggest is to play in the key of C. We're going to play C Lydian augmented, which is the 3rd mode of the A melodic minor. Now, technically, you could also play the 3rd mode of the harmonic minor, A harmonic minor, which would be C major with a sharp 5. I don't always like the minor 3rd in that scale, but it just depends upon style and preference. I'll definitely throw in the melodic minor, and if I can, I'll throw in some harmonic minor as well. I don't even play it as much, but and I might throw in some major pentatonic as well. What do we do when the 4 chord in a major chord progression is minor instead of major? Well, I'm going to suggest for the key of C that we play C Mixolydian flat 6. Now, C Mixolydian flat 6 is the 5th mode of the F melodic minor. Since the 4 chord is F, maybe it's easier for you just to say to yourself, every time I hit the C of 4 minor, I'll play melodic minor rooted from the 4 chord. It's your prerogative. Well, you make the music theory serve you versus you serve the theory, whatever works easiest for you. But I think of it as C Mixolydian flat 6. Let's see what that sounds like. So that's the idea. As you can probably hear, the 4 minor is a melancholy sound, and it's often preceded by 4 major, and that's what I put into that track. So, but no rules, just what sounds and feels good. So next up is the 5 chord. What happens when the 5 chord is minor instead of major? For this one, we're going to play C Mixolydian. I've also thrown in the flat 7 major, which is even more common than the 5 minor. Both the 5 minor and the flat 7 major are going to speak Mixolydian to us. So that's the F major scale, by the way, but I'm thinking in key of C. Let's hear it. I have to admit, this one sounds a little odd to my ears on the track, but it might sound better in a different song context. What do we do when 6 minor is major? Well, I can't give you a C major mode or C minor mode. I can't give you any C modes because this mode is going to have a C sharp in it. What I'm going to suggest that we play is over that A major chord, play an A Mixolydian flat 6, which happens to be a D melodic minor. So let's hear what it sounds like here. Finally, what do we play when the flat 6 major pops up in a major chord progression? So in a key of C, that would be an A flat major chord. Now earlier we worked on the flat 7 major, and that along with the 5 minor, we said that's C Mixolydian in the key of C. When flat 6 major pops up, oftentimes I see it paired with the B flat, with that flat 7 major. Whether it is or it isn't, and you're going to hear both of those in the chord progression, we're just going to go to the parallel minor. So in the key of C, we're going to play key of C major, we're going to play C minor. So let's hear what that sounds like. Little feedback at the end. So that's the idea. I really like that one. So hopefully you do too. Hey, I hope you've enjoyed the content here. What I've attempted to do is to really teach the number system in detail, because it will empower you as a musician to be able to know what scales to play over chord progressions. It empowers you to know when you're seeing a modal chord progression, which is what we've been seeing in a lot of these songs. So you might have been surprised to find a lot of melodic minor coming up. That C Mixolydian flat 6 pops up a lot. I was surprised by that when I really started getting into the exceptions here. And for a lot of those, as I said, you can play harmonic minor mode instead. I didn't always demonstrate all of those. And you can try to use pentatonic scales to cheat the modes. This stuff, I tend to think of these exceptions to the number systems as being what I call temporary modulations. That last song was like going from the key of C major to C minor and kind of back and forth. But sometimes you might think of these as secondary dominants, like the 6 major chord that we worked on earlier pulled to the 2 minor. It acted like a dominant, that A major chord would be played as an A dominant, and it pulls to D minor. So that's another way that people present and think about these. The scale work, sometimes you hear it called modal interchange because you're moving from one scale to the other. Sometimes you hear jazzers just say playing the changes. This stuff is not limited to jazz. You hear my guitar tones, I'm kind of doing a more rock tone. So there's a lot of great music. I mentioned the Beatles doing this stuff. Modern pop will do it. 80s pop, I'm thinking of Tears for Fears, where they have a Lydian chord progression on the outro when they're doing the 1 major to the 2 major. That song is otherwise, I think, mostly, maybe exclusively in a major key. So there's a lot of great music, and it's not avant-garde or jazz or alien at all, where you can use these tricks. And frankly, modern music has become more predictable by staying within the lines, meaning it's coloring in the lines and having the chords conform more to my part 1 video, which we'd call those diatonic chord progressions, because they stay on the white keys on that piano. They never get outside. But this part 2 content I've been presenting is showing us what happens when we add just a little outside note here or there, and I think it makes the music more interesting. One person's treasure is another person's trash. Sometimes you might find some of it dated. So, to each his own, but I hope this gives you a good idea and a good sense of what you can do with the number system and with scales and chords. Hey, thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I've got more content coming.